Hi everyone, welcome back to BeRich. It's me and Anand sitting here in Dubai recording remotely as we are waiting to go meet some of you in the event later on today. We thought to take this opportunity to discuss an interesting development in the American market and how we should look at these opportunities as they unfold. We've been talking about AI and AI driven bubble. Of course, Anand's always been saying always focus on the guys who are providing the pickaxes and the shovels in the market in these kinds of gold rush. Don't focus on the actual gold rush. So, taking that kind of an idea and running with it, we thought we'll talk about the energy sector. And Anand can offer his insight and maybe highlight how Microsoft is working. And we should also learn from that and look for opportunities.
So the biggest gainer from the California gold rush is not any company or billionaire who survived, but a man who made pants from tent cloth. And today we know as Levi's, and all of us are running behind Levi's jeans. And so Levi's jeans has been there for nearly 150 years now. And this is they supplied clothes to made out of tent cloth to gold miners. So it's the company that supplies pickaxes and clothing that survives. The American government has not made any big investments in infrastructure over several years. And they've been running and will continue to run a big deficit even after the big, beautiful bill is passed. They are going to run a big deficit. And now the Democrats and the Republicans are fighting over what should be there in the budget bill. So, but one of the oft mistaken things that people have on the AI is going to consume a lot of power. If lot of data centers that have been announced by Oracle and others and Nvidia have to run, they require power. And so Economist says there are a lot of powered projects going on in America, middle of deserts like in San Antonio, somewhere in Texas, where in the middle of the desert somebody is planning a huge power center. This is basically all these guys are trying to do using renewable energy, basically light, there is sun and also wind to generate the power that is required. But still, the amount of power that is required to power artificial intelligence is huge. A lot of companies are now scrambling to set up data centers. More than data centers, it is the companies that actually generate the power that are going to be of a big opportunity. At this time, I do not know of any company we have not zeroed in on any company that is going to zero in on power, but that seems to be a big opportunity. I just now read that Microsoft has decided to fund Constellation Energy, a company that owns 3 Mile Island, and 3 Mile Island was a reactor which was shut down many years ago after there was a huge accident. It is also known as a 3 Mile accident. You can look up the 3 Mile accident, and nobody has restarted that power plant. Now, what Microsoft is saying is they will restart the power plant. They will give the money to Constellation Energy. Constellation Energy will restart the plant and will start supplying power. And what Microsoft is now saying is it will take 835 megawatt of the power from the power plant for its own use, primarily to run data centers. Now, there are two reasons why Microsoft will need a data center. One is, of course, it requires for AI. The other thing is that Azure is a huge and growing business, trying to compete with Amazon and catch up with AWS. At the same time, they are trying to keep Google out. So they need a lot of power for that. And the power is going to come from restarting 3 Mile Island. Because nuclear power, though, is considered risky, is normally very safe unless the accident happens, and is some of the lowest cost of power. In fact, France almost completely runs on nuclear power. So far we have been talking about power coming from wind and power coming from light. Here's a private sector company which is now funding people to start a company that is restart a dormant nuclear reactor to supply power to a private company. So basically, this is the kind of things that will be required. India is at a huge disadvantage because Even though generation of power is in the private sector, even some transmission lines are also there in the private sector. The last mile connectivity has to go through the government distribution, which will impede its ability to set up power and compete with these companies. So, one of the big differentiators in going forward is going to be the availability of power and the ability of these companies to be able to buy power. In that, India does not seem to have an advantage with the rest of the world. Of course, the Middle East, both Saudi and UAE, are trying very hard to get AI and latest gen companies here. They have abundance of sunlight and land for them to be able to generate power that is required to set up a data center. How this develops and how this pans out is something we have to need to watch. But one thing is very clear, Microsoft has given a contract to Constellation Energy to restart a dormant reactor. If this is successfully done, then worldwide there is going to be a demand for nuclear power. India is also trying the same, but its major corporates have now cried about the liability law. So whether the state takes the liability in event of an accident or whether the private companies are forced to pay it is something we do not know. In India, if the private companies are forced to pay, then this will lead to a sinking of private sector interest in setting up nuclear power plants. Anyway, there's a lot of time. We will have to wait and see what happens. Whatever you want to say. What do you want to add to this?
Yeah. So, like Anand was saying, power sector offers a huge opportunity in the United States, and it's usually hammered. Usually during the season, when the hurricanes come and the weather turns bad, and a lot of these power companies' cables fall, and they run into problems, and investors forecast that these guys are going to have a problem on their infrastructure, and they beat them down. This time around, maybe when this happens, it's an opportunity for you to study. Like Anand said, study the guys who are supplying the pickaxes and shovels. For these data centers, if you have been following this, what are important? One is power, one is clean water, the other is data center companies. Like recently, there's a company called Fermi, which went public in the US. That stock has risen since IPO almost by 35% in a single day because they provide data center real estate. So these are kind of the opportunities you should study. We're not naming specific companies. We have not done our due diligence in this. We ourselves are researching about it. So this is something you can also join us and try and study this, like Anand said. And this is one of the main reasons why they're even venturing outside US to set up their data centers. The flip of it is because of national security, all what we saw with TikTok, they will not want to put too much these data centers outside the United States. There will be huge pressures because of national security to keep these data centers inside the United States. So, yes, they may look at friendly countries like the UAE or Saudi Arabia to set up these data centers, but at the same time, they would also want to keep it at home. So striking that balance is going to be difficult, which means it will open up opportunities for us as investors to study these companies all over the United States and see where this energy sector, water, and real estate we can look at, especially when it comes to data centers. So we have given you some food for thought over the weekend. We hope that you enjoyed that food of thought and spend your weekend reading and diving into this. And do reach out to me and Anand on Instagram and on YouTube and let us know what you think. We have many ideas like this when it comes to American and Japanese stocks. If you're interested in Japanese and American stocks, I have a form which I put up, a Google form which you can find in my profile on Instagram. It's called Hey There. Click on it and fill in the form, and someone from my team here in Dubai will get in touch with you and help you get sorted out with our advisory for US and Japanese stocks. Thanks for being with us on BeRich today.
Thank you for supporting BeRich. I hope you'll send this video to your relatives and friends and have them take a look. Once again, I thank you for your support for BeRich.
Thank you.